Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining in today's reading. Today we are going to read Śrīla Raghunātha Gosvāmī's book is called Śrī Manaḥ-śikṣā, which is part of actually another collection. Before reading the book, I'm going to give a brief introduction first. So Śrī Manaḥ-śikṣā, meaning like the splendid instructions to the mind. This is an excerpt from his larger collection Stavāvali. So it's taken part of Stavāvali, which is an English translation, and this is here an English translation commentary of the Sanskrit verses composed by Śrīla Raghunātha Gosvāmī. It is a spiritual manual that instructs the mind to abandon pride, deceit, and the desire for worldly prestige. The text outlines a step-by-step path to cultivate deep, unalloyed affection for the spiritual master, holy places, and pure devotees. It explicitly warns practitioners against the deceptive traps of material liberation and subtle ego, comparing these distractions to deadly tigresses and witches. By utilizing regular chanting and internal meditation, the practitioner learns to consciously redirect the mind's focus towards spontaneous divine love. Ultimately, the book guides the soul to spontaneously serve Sri Rādhā and Kṛṣṇa in the intimate sacred mood of Vṛndāvana. And Śrīla Raghunātha Gosvāmī, he lived between 1494 and 1586 AD. He was a Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharya and a follower of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is one of the 6 Gosvāmis of Vṛndāvana, that include Śrīla Rupa Gosvāmī, Śrīla Sanatana Gosvāmī, Śrīla Raghunātha Bhatta Gosvāmī, Śrīla Raghunātha Dāsa Gosvāmī, Śrīla Jiva Gosvāmī, and Śrīla Gopala Bhatta Gosvāmī. He was the first of the 6 Gosvāmis to meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we are reading this from ISKCON Desire Tree website. And ISKCON Desire Tree is a free online resource for devotees worldwide and the multimedia social network with a mission to spread Krishna consciousness as per the desire of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And they are doing this by providing Gaudiya Vaishnava biographies, Vedic knowledge, teachings and practices given by Vaishnava Acharyas. And the rights for all the content presented here are reserved by ISKCON Desire Tree, and we thank them for making all of these available for us to be able to read online. And before we start reading the book, we are going to offer prayers to the Acharyas and also take blessings. Om Ajnānatimirandhasya Jnānāṅjanashalakaya Chakshurunmīlitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamsya Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunādhaṃ Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Rādhā Kṛṣṇa Padān Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitamsya Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin iti namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dīnabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vṛndāvaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha kalpatarubhyascha Krupa sindubhya cha Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vṛnda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we are reading Śrīla Raghunātha dāsa Gosvāmī's book, Śrī Manaḥ-śikṣā, Splendid Instructions to the Mind. O my uncomprehending inner self, my dear brother mine, I humbly prostrate myself before you. Taking hold of your feet, I beseech you, please give up all pride and surrender fully to Sri Guru, to the spiritual abode of Vṛndāvana, to the residents of Vraja, to all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, to the Sattvika Brahmanas, to the holy name of the Supreme Lord, and to the ever fresh and youthful divine couple of blossoming beauty, Sri Rādhā and Kṛṣṇa, and in this way quickly develop sublime attachment to them. Sri Bhajana Darpana. Falling humbly at the lotus feet of Śrīla Raghunātha Gosvāmī, who is respected throughout the universe as the spiritual master, I commence this Sri Bhajana Darpana, which is a commentary on his book Śrī Manaḥ-śikṣā. Śrīla Raghunātha severed all family attachments and took complete shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Gauranga, who advented in Kali Yuga as the most munificent incarnation of the Supreme Lord. On Lord Gauranga's request, Srila Swarup Damodara Gosvāmī revealed to Raghunātha Gosvāmī all the recondite conclusions of scriptures on the science of unalloyed devotion. These 12 verses of Śrī Manaḥ-śikṣā are therefore the source of life and inspiration to the entire Gaudiya Vaishnava community, for by instructing his own mind, Śrīla Raghunātha Gosvāmī teaches all Gaudiya Vaishnavas. This is the essential spiritual question. What is the living entity's prime duty when he finally develops heartfelt faith in the topics of Krishna consciousness? A faith which itself is the result of so much piety. Śrī Manaḥ-śikṣā answers this important question, and in Sri Bhajana Darpana, every point in these verses is explained in detail, and all the inner esoteric meanings revealed. Two types of spiritual masters. There are two types of spiritual masters, the Diksha Guru and the Siksha Guru. The unalloyed devotee who completely destroys all anarthas or unwanted desires in one's heart by bestowing on transcendental knowledge of one's sacred relationship with Lord Sri Krishna is known as the Diksha Guru. And the pure devotee who instructs and guides the disciple in the confidential service of Sri Rādhā and Kṛṣṇa is the Siksha Guru. Both are manifestations of Krishna and are equal in all respects, and they both should always be held in the highest esteem as objects of worship and loving service. Vṛndāvana and the devotees. Sri Vrajadhama is the holy abode of Sri Rādhā and Kṛṣṇa's transcendental loving pastimes. Gokula, Vṛndāvana, Nandagram, Govardhana, Yavat, Radhakunda and Shyamakunda are some of the many different sites within Vraja where they perform their Leela. Sri Vrajabasi Jana are the pure devotees who actually reside in the sacred Dhama and render loving service to Sri Rādhā and Kṛṣṇa. They do not aspire even for Vaikuntha, but to speak of desiring any sense enjoyment or liberation. In order to render loving service to the divine couple, they reside in Vraja in person or by meditation, and they are therefore considered to be the very highest level of devotees or most advanced Uttama Adhikaris. Sujanas are devotees who belong to the four Vaishnava Sampradayas. Many of them reside in Vraja but not in their spiritual forms. This means that they are present in Vraja but do not worship Sri Rādhā and Kṛṣṇa in the mood of Vṛndāvana pastimes. Instead, they worship Radha Krishna in the mood of Rukmini Dwarakadish in Dwaraka, or as Lakshmi Narayana with feelings of awe and reverence. As intermediate devotees, they are called Madhyama Adhikaris. Brahmanas, strictly following the rule of Varnashrama Dharma, teaching the science of Vaishnavism, are known as Bhusaragana. They are neophyte devotees or Kanishta Adhikaris. Initiation and Mantras. The mantra which the disciple receives directly from his spiritual master is known as Swamantra, one's original or principal mantra. In order to ensure spiritual success, it should be chanted diligently. Hari, Radha Kanta, Krishna, Govinda, etc. are the Supreme Lord's principal names. When he is called Patita Pavana, Paramatma, Brahman, etc., these names are known as his indirect or secondary names. One should take shelter of the principal names of the Lord, particularly the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Surrender without pretense. Śrīla Raghunātha dāsa Gosvāmī defines surrender as the external indication of one's internal cultivation of unalloyed love and attraction for the lotus feet of Sri Rādhā and Kṛṣṇa. Illusion, deceit, pretense, ignorance, deviousness, and committing offenses are different aspects of pride. For in practicing bhakti or devotional service, cultivation of desires and aspirations other than those that augment one's pure love is considered pretense. When there is a predominance of fruitive activities, empirical knowledge, or practice of yoga in the execution of one's bhakti, ignorance increases and causes one to lose whatever true knowledge he has gained. In other words, when service to Radha and Kṛṣṇa is contaminated by any negative or unfavorable mood or practice, it becomes covered by maya or illusion. These are all obstacles which must be removed from the path of pure bhakti until one is free from the false pride born of Varnashrama Dharma, material accomplishments, and forgetfulness of one's original spiritual identity. Self-realization is pure attachment. Therefore, self-realization or true identification with one's spiritual nature is the purest form of attachment. The living entity's original and thus constitutional position is as an eternal servant of Sri Krishna. It is only by the force of illusion and material conditioning that the soul develops attachment for transient material things. Because Lord Krishna is the soul of souls or super soul, only on the platform of pure devotion to the Supreme Lord can one be situated in and attached to one's real life. As much as one's attachment is concentrated in Krishna consciousness, to that degree it is known as sublime attachment. The point is that one must anxiously strive to develop this kind of attachment to Lord Krishna and his devotional service, never becoming complacent and thinking, if luck favors me, it will automatically happen. As one performs the practices of Bhakti Yoga in the association of pure devotees, one's inner spiritual strength gradually manifests itself more and more, and the results of fruitive activities begin to dissipate. So, by the practice of sadhana bhakti, without doubt, one will attract the mercy of the pure devotees and the Supreme Lord Krishna himself. Association leads to faith and initiation. The essential spiritual advice in this purport is this: as long as the results of fruitive activities are not diminished by the purifying association of saintly persons, Shraddha or faith will not occur. Without proper faith, one remains unqualified to hear transcendental topics and thus assimilate spiritual instructions. However, if faith dawns in one's heart, his very first step is to accept initiation from a bona fide Diksha Guru, to receive a mantra for constant worship, and to render loving devotional service to the divine couple Sri Rādhā and Kṛṣṇa. One should chant this mantra and worship both the initiating and instructing spiritual masters with great attachment, never thinking that the Guru is merely a great sage, rather that he is one's most intimate and well-wishing friend. Instructions to the devotee. The three kinds of Vaishnava devotees, Kanishtha, Madhyama and Uttama, should be offered respect according to their stations and served affectionately to their satisfaction. The aspiring devotee should cultivate true attachment to the holy name and to the mantra bestowed on him through the Diksha Guru by the soul of his own soul, and should offer himself in full surrender to them. Verse 2. Translation. O my dear mind, please do not perform the religious activities described in the Vedas, or the sinful activities also designated in the scriptures. The ultimate conclusion of the Vedic literatures is that the divine couple Sri Rādhā and Kṛṣṇa is the supreme object of worship, and that loving service to them is the most relishable experience of all. Therefore, O mind, engage yourself fully in serving them with love and devotion. Always meditate on Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the son of Mother Sachi, understanding him to be absolutely non-different from Sri Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda. O mind, meditate as well on Sri Guru, who is the dearmost devotee of Lord Mukunda, Krishna. Sri Bhajana Darpana. The advice which Śrīla Raghunātha Gosvāmī gave us in the first verse was to extirpate all our pride, but naturally this poses some problems. How can a living entity support and maintain himself if he engages full-time in devotional service to Lord Krishna? How can one lead a normal active life if he gives up the prescribed duties that regulate religious and occupational activities, as well as the sins committed in the course of everyday life? A second problem arises. If one directs his devotion single-mindedly to Sri Rādhā and Kṛṣṇa, how will he be able to behold Sri Krishna Chaitanya? What is his position? The third question is this: in what devotional mood should one meditate on the spiritual master? Pious and impious activities. The Vedas state that a person's every deed comes under one of the only two categories, pious or impious. If he is to restrict himself from all activities, how can he possibly survive even for a moment? But please note that Śrīla Raghunātha Gosvāmī is not suggesting that one sees all physical activities, impious or otherwise. There are two classes of living entities in the world, the self-realized and the ignorant. The ignorant cannot work without rules and regulations, for when they act independently of scriptural ordinance, their activities turn inauspicious and immoral. The Vedas have therefore categorized all man's activities into pious and impious for their sake. Those who possess knowledge of the soul and the soul's true spiritual identity are self-realized, and therefore scriptural rules and regulations are not meant for them. Scripture instructs them to embrace the path of self-realization, which is the process of surrendering to Lord Krishna. In other words, to cultivate unalloyed loving devotion to the personality of Godhead. A pious and faithful person belongs to this latter category. And thus, Śrīla Raghunātha Gosvāmī advises him not to become entangled in either pious or impious activities, but to engage in unlimited devotional service to the divine couple, Radha and Kṛṣṇa. All the necessary activities in a sadhakas or a practicing devotees, life must be dovetailed into the direct service to the supreme divine couple. The Lord is the supreme enjoyer. When the sadhaka is thus strictly practicing varnashrama dharma, he naturally performs all his activities as service to the Supreme Lord. Householder devotees especially should establish deity worship in their homes, thus making the deity the center of all their activities and worship. The grihastha earns money, maintains his family property, protects his assets, builds a home, etc., everything being executed in the mood of service to the Lord. He never tries to take the position that he is the only enjoyer of the results of his actions. He even performs the Shraddha ritual as mentioned in the Haribhakta Vilasa, but only as service to the Lord. Thus, when his devotion matures and he becomes ready to graduate from the strict regulations of Varnashrama Dharma, he can very easily live in Vṛndāvana and engage wholly in serving the divine couple in the spiritual mellows appropriate to his spiritual identity. Even those who continue to live outside Vraja may reside there through meditation. Devotees must worship Guru Gauranga. One should always meditate on Lord Gauranga, knowing him to be non-different in every way from Sri Krishna, and on Sri Guru, knowing him to be Lord Mukunda's dearest devotee. Without first remembering and worshipping the spiritual master and Lord Gauranga, one cannot render pure loving devotional service to the divine couple Sri Rādhā and Kṛṣṇa. Deviation from this process will curb all spiritual advancement. If one attempts to worship Lord Chaitanya separately and independently, one is unable to understand how he is non-different from Lord Krishna. When knowledge of the Lord's fundamental oneness becomes firm, however, remembrance of Lord Chaitanya is inseparably interwoven into the texture of worship of Sri Krishna. The Guru is known as Mukunda Prestha, or very dear to Lord Mukunda, the Supreme Lord who gives liberation from the pangs of material bondage. The devotee should think, Lord Krishna has sent Sri Gurudeva to deliver me, and in this way, everything is perfectly harmonized upon one's realizing that the spiritual master is a loving confidant and maidservant of Srimati Radharani. Verse 3. Translation. My dear mind, if you are eager to reside in Vrajadhama and execute devotional service on the platform of Ragatmika Bhakti, as well as to yearn for direct service to Sri Rādhā and Kṛṣṇa, then simply desire to remember and worship birth after birth the lotus feet of Sri Swarup Damodar, Śrīla Gosvāmī, Sri Sanatana Gosvāmī, and all the other associates of Sri Chaitanya, who are the recipients of his mercy. Sri Bhajana Darpana. The question may be raised whether it is possible to attain Ragatmika Bhakti and reside in Vrajadhama if one has taken Diksha and received instruction from a disciplic succession other than the Gaudiya Sampradaya. The execution as well as the goals of devotional service are divided into three categories: Sadhana Bhakti, or dutiful devotional service executed according to specific rules and regulations; Bhava Bhakti, or rendering spontaneous service which is superior to regulative devotional service; and Prema Bhakti, or spontaneous and unalloyed love. Śrīla Rupa Gosvāmī says in Bhakti Rasamrta Sindhu 1.4.15 and 16, in the beginning one must have a preliminary desire for self-realization. For this will elevate him to the stage of attempting to associate with saints who are spiritually advanced. He then becomes initiated by an elevated spiritual master. And it is under the tutelage of the Guru that he actually begins the process of devotional service. For it is only by executing devotional service under the guidance of such a spiritual master that one becomes freed of all material attachments, attains steadiness in self-realization, and thus acquires a real taste for hearing about this absolute personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. A taste that leads one forward to attachment for Krishna consciousness. This matures into bhava, the preliminary stage of Krishna prema or transcendental love of God, the highest perfectional stage of spiritual life. Sadhana Bhakti. Sadhana Bhakti has two divisions: Vaidhi Bhakti, or regulated devotional service, and Raganuga Bhakti, or spontaneous devotional service. Śrīla Rupa Gosvāmī describes Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti in the following manner. The Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, quoted from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. When the inclination towards sadhana bhakti is inspired by scriptural injunctions and not by spontaneous attraction, it is called Vaidhi Bhakti. Such rules and regulations are stringent and are executed in a mood of awe and reverence and opulence. This stage is therefore sometimes called not sure that it's not Mayavada or the path of reverence. Probably Maryadavada or the path of reverence by the spiritual authorities. Rupa Gosvāmī describes Raganuga Bhakti thus from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.270 to 272. The loving devotional sentiments that are perfectly manifested in the eternal residents of transcendental Vraja are known as Ragatmika Bhakti or Raganuga Bhakti. To discuss Raganuga Bhakti, it is necessary to analyze Ragatmika Bhakti first. Ragamika Bhakti first. One is Raganuga Bhakti, and it says it is necessary to analyze Ragamika Bhakti first. Natural and intense loving absorption in an unquenchable thirst for contact with the most worshipable object, Lord Sri Krishna, is called Raga. Devotional service embellished by Raga is called Ragatmika Bhakti, which is of two kinds: Kama Rupa, which is amorous, and Sambandha Rupa, which is relational. In order to become eligible for Raganuga Bhakti, one must develop intense greed, lobha, to follow in the footsteps of an eternal associate of the Supreme Lord, who is a permanent resident of Vrajadhama and is 100% steeped in the mood of Ragatmika Bhakti. It is from such a pure devotee that one obtains the Ragatmika mood. The symptoms of one who has developed lobha is that he is spontaneously attracted to the loving sentiments and the character of eternal associates of the Lord, like Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda, after hearing about them from revealed scriptures such as the Bhagavatam. Situated in this loving mood, he does not care at all for the rules and regulations of the scriptures. Yet, as long as attraction or rati has not blossomed within his heart, the devotee remains on the platform of Vaidhi Bhakti, which is marked by adherence to scriptural injunctions and favorable stipulations. All devotees perform Vaidhi Bhakti. While actually residing in Vraja, one must become absorbed in remembering and meditating on the pastimes of Lord Sri Krishna and those of his confidential associates, whose devotional sentiments one desires to emulate. By so doing, he becomes attached to the same devotional taste. He should develop an attachment to constant hearing about these pastimes. Sadhakas who hanker after decorating their basic devotional mood with the spiritual sentiments of their favorite associates of the Lord have to render service to Sri Krishna by following in their footsteps. As a sadhaka, he renders service in his material body, and as a siddha or perfected soul, he renders service in a suitable spiritual form. Well known among knowledgeable persons is that in Vaidhi Bhakti, devotional activities like hearing and chanting are always being performed by devotees and are important functions in Raganuga Bhakti as well. Bhava Bhakti or Rati. Beyond sadhana bhakti lies Bhava Bhakti or Rati, loving attraction. In his Ujjala Nilamani, Śrīla Gosvāmī describes Rati as a complete and mature spiritual state that may ripen even further into Mahabhava. Thus Rati is eagerly sought after by the very best of the liberated and perfected devotees of the Lord. When Rati steadies, the first stirrings of prema, spiritual love, capture the devotee's heart. Variegated in nature, prema or steady attraction, rau, are analyzed according to their many transformations. Sneha, mana, pranaya, raga, anuraga, bhava, and mahabhava. The development of devotional sentiment from rati to prema is compared to sugarcane juice. As it is cooked, it gradually thickens into molasses, then syrup, then sugar, and ultimately into crystallized sugar candy. Similarly, in pure spiritual love, there are progressive transformations, each of which learned saints term a different stage of prema. Lord Sri Krishna reciprocates with each of these loving sentiments in sublime pleasure and love. The essence of spiritual mellows. The esoteric conclusion here is that loving conjugal exchanges in Vrajadhama are the very essence of all spiritual mellows. And if this spiritual current is at all present in other spiritual stages, it is there only in restricted degrees. Lord Chaitanya's advice is therefore to accept great devotees like Śrīla Raghunātha, dāsa Gosvāmī, Śrīla Gosvāmī and other unalloyed devotees who are the recipients of the Lord's special mercy as one's very own instructing spiritual masters or Shiksha Gurus. It should be remembered that loving devotion in the mood of Ragatmika Bhakti is rarely attained, if at all, then only after many lifetimes of rendering devotional service. However, if one receives the causeless mercy of the Lord and his pure devotees, Ragatmika Bhakti is achieved very quickly. Verse 4, translation. My dear mind, you must categorically relinquish all frivolous and mundane talk, which is like a prostitute who steals all your intelligence and resolve. The desire for liberation is equally evil, for it is like a terrifying tiger, devouring your very being. I further request that you even abandon your attachment to Lord Narayana, the husband of Mother Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, who offers the grand benediction of residence in Vaikuntha. I simply and humbly request that you live in Braja and worship Sri Rādhā and Sri Kṛṣṇa, for they bless their devotees with engagement in their devotional service. Sri Bhajana Darpana. Like prostitutes, mundane subjects plunder a man's knowledge and his resolve. A prostitute cunningly relieves her customers of their riches, and mundane talks rob a man of his wealth of knowledge. After all, one's predilection for spiritual upliftment is his only treasure, and such a treasure is everything to the sincere transcendentalist. Grossly materialistic subject matters and dealings with topics unrelated to the absolute truth plunder his treasure because they are unreal, illusory, and temporary. The real price of pure devotional service. Dabbling in scriptural injunctions that deal only with temporary and mundane goals such as greed for wealth, close association with women, or keeping the company of people overly attached to women are considered gross materialistic activities. Any desire for association with such activities is tantamount to mundane talk. Śrīla Ramananda Raya, in commenting on the heart's proclivity, says, quoted in Śrīla Gosvāmī's Stavāvali, Pure devotional service in Krishna consciousness cannot be had by pious activity in hundreds and thousands of lifetimes. It can be obtained, however, by paying one price only: intense greed to obtain it. If it is available somewhere, anywhere, one must purchase it without delay. Impersonal liberation rejected. Mukti or liberation means impersonal liberation or impersonal Brahman realization. Mukti or liberation means impersonal Brahman liberation, or merging into the Brahma Jyoti effulgence of the Spirit Supreme Lord. Also known as Sahyajya Mukti, it essentially abrogates the soul's individual identity and existence. And so, even attempts to establish the reality of Brahman by this process result only in confusing verbiage. The truth of the matter is that the omnipotent Supreme Personality of Godhead is the one and only unsurpassable absolute principle. The Supreme Lord's potencies are eternal. The supramundane eternal potency, which acts as his internal spiritual energy, manifests his transcendental pastimes. And as his external material energy, or Maya, it produces both the unlimited cosmic universes and the gross and subtle material bodies of the conditioned living entities. His marginal energy expands as the countless souls in the creation. All the Lord's potencies are therefore eternally engaged in rendering service to him. The idiots, those inimical to the Lord, or who have no faith in his transcendental pastimes, pretend to create a utopia by the self-destructive process of merging into Brahman, the impersonal feature of the Supreme Lord, Supreme Godhead. Such a course resembles the prisoner who attempts to end his suffering by committing suicide. One must meticulously avoid associating with people who are devoted to this kind of liberation and reject all activities and the knowledge pertaining to it. Śrīla Rupa Gosvāmī comments on this subject in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.22 to 23. Bhukti mukti spruha yavat pishachi hridi vartate tavat bhakti sukhashyatra kadham abhyudayo bhavet. Sri Krishna charanam bhoja seva nivritta chetasam esam mokshaya bhaktanam na kadachit spruha bhavet. As long as the fierce desire for sense gratification and liberation persistently haunt one's heart, how can the taste for devotional service ever blossom in it? An impure heart is the last place for pure devotion to take refuge in and thrive. Pure devotees, in fact, engaged in rendering loving service to the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, always experience overflowing happiness and bliss, and therefore they never even think of liberation. Liberation in devotional service. Vaikuntha in the spiritual sky is the abode of Lord Narayana, where he is worshipped reverentially with great pomp. By worship and service, one can attain his abode through any one of four kinds of liberation: Samipya, close association with the Lord; Sarishti, having the same opulence as the Lord; Salokya, living on the same planet as the Lord; and Sarupya, obtaining the same form and features as the Lord. Śrīla Rupa Gosvāmī elaborates on this subject in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.55 and 56. We mentioned earlier that all five types of liberation, Samipya, Sarishti, Salokya, Sarupya, and Sahyajya, or becoming one with the Lord, should be rejected. It is, however, worthwhile to mention that except for Sahyajya, liberation is not entirely detrimental to bhakti or devotional service to the personality of Godhead. One hears how souls in any of the four conditions of liberation are actually blessed with devotion to Lord Krishna. The liberated condition is of two sorts. One is dominated by a desire for happiness and opulence. The other is motivated by selfless loving service. Saintly devotees consider the former to be antipathetic to pure devotion, and thus unalloyed devotees engaged in unwavering service to the Supreme Lord and thirsty to relish the nectar of sublime loving mellows do not care for any of the forms of liberation. Among unalloyed bhaktas, those whose hearts have been captivated by the lotus feet of the son of Maharaja Nanda, Krishna, are indeed more elevated than others. They are in fact not attracted by the divine opulence of Lord Narayana, the Lord of Vaikuntha, or even by the grandeur of Sri Krishna, the husband of Queen Rukmini in Dwaraka. Although there is no difference in principle between Lord Narayana and Lord Krishna, Sri Krishna is superior because he alone is the supreme reservoir of all ecstatic spiritual mellows. The highest transcendental exchanges find their full expression in the form of Sri Krishna. In Sri Rupa Gosvāmī's Stavāvali, we find reference to this topic when Śrīla Haridas Thakura says, Stavāvali 102, there is no need to talk about attaining the heavenly planets or about becoming the Lord of the universe. I do not even want to hear the Vedic hymns that glorify liberation. My mind is enchanted by that brilliant bluish flash, whose complexion is similar to the color of a tamala sapling, who is always found in the forest groves on the banks of the river Yamuna. Spontaneous attraction to Radha and Kṛṣṇa. The soul of souls is Sri Rādhā and Kṛṣṇa. The spirit soul is the eternal servant of their lordships, and as such, he is the infinitesimal part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. His natural inclination, therefore, is spontaneous attraction for the divine couple. Although this attraction is the spirit soul's intrinsic birthright, and to intensify it is the true path of religious perfection, it nevertheless becomes covered over by ignorance and materialistic desires concomitant with its conditioned state. Srila Ishvara Puri comments, as quoted in Stavāvali 35 and 36, those fortunate pure souls dwelling in the secluded forests of the Himalayas may have their hearts overflowing with unparalleled joy from complete absorption in the Supersoul. But as far as I am concerned, I only desire to see within my heart the frolics of a cowherd boy, whose complexion is more brilliant than a flash of blue sapphire, who embodies the love of the gopis, and who sports in Vṛndāvana with a nary a care. Let the poets continue to rave about poetry, and let the Vedic scholars incessantly praise the nectar derived from Brahman realization. I myself will take shelter of a beautiful youth who is decorated with a garland made of wild flowers, holding a flute to his blossoming lips. Srila Kaviratna adds, quoted in Stavāvali 38, my mind is uninterested in becoming an emperor, unattracted the opulence and luxury of Indra, unconcerned about obtaining the mystic powers of a yogi, and not at all eager to attain liberation. What does arrest my entire being is the transcendental person who roams the banks of the Yamuna river. He looks, even at a glance, like an incandescent flash of lightning, whose complexion is like a fresh monsoon rain cloud. He is always embraced by the gopis, whose arms twine around him like creepers. Madhavendra Puri states further, quoted in Stavāvali, one who is expert in flirting and coquetry, whose trailing cape is as restless as the wind, whose cheeks catch the reflection from flashing fish-shaped earrings, and who is always eager to perform the rasa dance with the young damsels of Vṛndāvana. Let that Supreme Personality, who is a cowherd boy, be permanently seated on the throne of my heart. Only by worship and service to Sri Rādhā and Kṛṣṇa in Vraja is that most brilliant gem of inherent spontaneous spiritual attraction again invoked within one's heart, thus elevating the spirit soul to the stage of the highest ecstasy of love of Godhead. Verse 5. Translation. My dear mind, in this material life you are attacked by lust, which is like gang of thugs that waylay innocent pilgrims, strangling you with strong, terrible ropes in the form of distress, pain, and futile endeavors. In this condition, you must cry out piteously and invoke the mercy of the unalloyed devotees of Sri Krishna, the killer of the demon Bakasura. They will surely protect you from this dilemma. Sri Bhajana Darpana. Lust, anger, greed, illusion, arrogance and envy are the 6 thugs which openly harass the living entity. As if in conspiracy, they attack the innocent jiva traveling through the different stages of life. In the Bhagavad Gita 2.62 and 63, it is said, while contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment. It is actually develops, we should not develops. A person develops attachment for them. And from such attachment, lust develops. And from lust, anger arises. From anger, complete delusion arises. And from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. Lust, anger, cheating, etc. conquered by Krishna. In this way, the thugs strangle the jiva with the ropes of pain, futile endeavors, and distressing situations that arise from previous unwanted activities. The demon Baka embodied the evil quality of deceit, and Lord Sri Krishna ripped him apart. The Lord's unalloyed devotees always guard the path of loving devotional service against pretenders and cheaters. Scriptural confirmations. Śrīla Raghunātha has said in this regard, I offer my respectful obeisances to the great unalloyed devotees of Lord like Prahlad, Narada, Parashara, Pundarika, Vyasadeva, Ambarish Maharaj, Sukadeva Gosvāmī, Saunaka Rishi, Bhishma Deva, Rukmangada, Uddhava, Vibhishana, and Arjuna, etc. Sri Sarvagna Acharya says, O Lord, how extraordinary are your devotees. They consider the acto centro no more than a puddle, the sun a mere firefly, the towering Sumeru mountain just a cloud of dirt. A powerful emperor a mere slave, priceless touchstone gems just so many useless stones, wish-fulfilling trees as twigs, this whole material existence like an insignificant bunch of straw. What more is there to say? They think of their own bodies as heavy burdens. Śrīla Madliyava Saraswati comments, empresses and logicians whose minds have been contaminated by speculative theories and the false pride of erudition cannot understand God. They have no taste for spiritual topics like Krishna's pastimes. Indeed, Vedic scholars don't even have much information about the Lord. They do not know Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just as the highly ornamental serving spoon cannot relish the delicacies it serves. Association with devotees cleans heart. It is stated in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 2.2.29, Hiranyakashipu said to Prahlad, My dear son, association is very influential upon people. Like a crystal takes on the qualities of the one with whom it associates. For this reason, intelligent person should seek the company of high-class and like-minded individuals in order to increase the prestige of their families. The purport of this verse is that one's heart and consciousness cannot be purified of material contamination merely by performing sacrifices or by yoga exercises. It is only by association with unalloyed Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, ever free from conceit, and these impurities of the heart may be totally eradicated. Verse 6. Translation. My dear mind, you have embraced the path of self-realization, yet you foolishly think that you are cleansing yourself by bathing in the pretentiously fierce qualities of deceit and fault-finding, which are compared to impure donkey urine. Factually, you are incinerating yourself and dragging an infinitesimal spirit soul like me into conflagration. Stop this suicidal course. Dive into the immortal ocean of sublime ambrosia that awaits you in the loving devotional service at the lotus feet of Sri Rādhā and Kṛṣṇa. Resuscitate my very being and thus give both of us endless happiness. Sri Bhajana Darpana. This verse gives advice to those who have been able to subdue lust and anger, but have failed to vanquish the great enemy of deceit. The sadhaka or spiritual practitioner is of three kinds. Swanishtha means devoted to self-realization. Parinistha, dedicated rules and regulations. Parinisthita, dedicated to rules and regulations. And Nirapeksha, detached. The Swanishtha sadhaka completely rejects all the principles of Varnashram Dharma and endeavors solely to satisfy the Supreme Lord Hari. The Parinisthita sadhaka organizes his life and activities to conform to the rules of devotional service and deity worship. These two sadhakas are usually householders. The third type of aspiring devotee, the Nirapeksha or Nirapeksha sadhaka, or the detached devotee, is a renunciate and celibate. All three would do well to renounce deceitfulness, because deceit and pretense devastate spiritual understanding. How devotees become deceitful? The Swanishtha sadhaka becomes deceitful when he indulges in sense gratification in the name of satisfying the Supreme Lord. Instead of serving the pure-hearted devotees of the Lord, he serves rich and influential materialists and busies himself in accumulation of wealth beyond his needs. With the excuse of educating himself, he develops attachment, speculation, and logic. Putting on the robes of a renunciate, he strives for worldly acclaim and honor. The Parinisthita sadhaka becomes deceitful when he makes an external show of strict adherence and dedication to spiritual life, but inwardly is attracted to material subjects, completely unrelated to Krishna, and prefers the association of the worldly minded to saintly souls. When the renunciate or Nirapeksha sadhaka becomes deceitful, he considers himself to be a very elevated devotee and exploits the renunciate's dress and status, looking down upon other devotees as if they were inferior. He collects objects and wealth far in excess of the basic requirements for a life of renunciation, and associates with women in the name of spiritual practice or preaching. He leaves the shelter of the temple to collect funds and donations only to remain in close contact with materialists. He is always in anxiety about collecting funds, yet covers his deceit with a show of devotion. He is overly attached to the dress, position, and the rules and regulations of the renounced order, and thus neglects the main purpose of spiritual life, which is to develop attachment for Krishna. These traits like deceit, fault-finding, speculation, argumentation, etc. are very detrimental to true spiritual realization and have therefore been compared in this verse to the ass. Fools may think that they can bathe in ass urine and become cleansed, but actually it only pollutes their spiritual lives. The nectar of the lotus feet of the divine couple. Srimati Radharani is the internal energy of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, and Sri Krishna is the supreme energetic. One must submerge himself in the ocean of nectar flowing from the lotus feet of divine couple. To help one invoke their sublime mercy, Śrīla Gosvāmī prays in Stavāvali, O Queen of Vṛndāvana, O Radharani, your complexion is like molten gold. Your doe-like eyes are captivatingly restless. A million full and brilliant moons wane before your lustrous countenance, and a blue sky, having stolen the hue of a fresh rain-laden cloud, has enwrapped your exquisite form. O Radha, you are the crest jewel of all the dallying damsels of Vṛndāvana, fragrant and pristine, like a budding jasmine flower. Your sublime form is adorned with priceless jewelry, and you are the best of all of the charming and intelligent gopis. You are decorated with all wonderful excellences and surrounded by 8 dedicated and beloved cowherd girls known as the Ashtasakhis. The ambrosia of your beautiful lips, red as the bimba fruit, is life-giving syrup to Krishna. O Radha, I am rolling on the banks of the Yamuna, my poor heart filled with anticipation praying to you with all humility. I am guilty of being an offender, a rascal, a useless wretch. Yet I beg you to kindly engage me in even the smallest service to your lotus feet. O most merciful lady, it will not become you to ignore this most distressed soul, for your heart is always overflowing with compassion and love. Elsewhere in Stavāvali, Śrīla Gosvāmī writes, I will now sing the glories of the holy names of the divine couple Sri Rādhā and Kṛṣṇa in 8 verses. The first describes the glories of the holy names of Sri Rādhā and Kṛṣṇa. Radharani is the daughter of Sri Vṛndāvana and Kṛṣṇa is the son of the king of Vraja. Of all the gopis, she is the most beloved of Govinda, and he is Srimati Radhika's paramour. She is the heroine of all the forest boars, and he is the all-attractive hero. She is the brightest gem amongst the young village belles of Vraja, and he is the best of all the young cowherd boys. She is the princess of Vṛndāvana, and he is the dashing prince regent. She is always enjoyed by Krishna, and he is the heartthrob of Srimati Radharani. Humility, the cure for deceit. In this way, O mind, your heart must become saturated with the divine nectar of the holy names of Sri Rādhā and Kṛṣṇa. And remembering their eternal pastimes, you must wander about in Vṛndāvana. As soon as the mind allows any non-essential thoughts to enter, deceit immediately attacks the soul again. The heart that has been thus purified by humility can never again open its doors to deceit. Verse 7. Translation. My dear brother mine, the despicable desire for material honor and distinction is compared to shameless and low-born prostitute who eats dog meat. Yet she is flagrantly dancing in my heart. How then can the pristine love of pure devotion to Sri Krishna ever find a place in my heart? You will simply have to serve the unalloyed devotees of the Lord, who are his intimate associates and stalwart supporters. They alone can drive out this prostitute and enthrone pure love of Godhead within my heart. Sri Bhajana Darpana. This verse indicates how one can extinguish any remaining doubt he may have if his repeated and exhaustive attempts to weed out deceit from his heart have failed. Hankering for honor is in fact a shameless prostitute who yearns to be worshipped. All other unwanted desires may be eradicated, but the hankering for honor and distinction is extremely difficult to uproot. It is like a seed which sprouts only later into a deceitful plant, a matrix from which all other anarthas stem. Thus it is called shameless, for it conveniently overlooks its own evil influence. Fame is like a dog, and one who runs after it is factually eating the flesh of a dog. Thus the desire for material honor and distinction is compared to a low-class prostitute who consumes dog meat. Material desire leads to craving honor. If the Svanishta sadhaka mentioned in the previous verse still harbors some material desire in his heart, his yearning for honor manifests itself in the hope of being regarded as a highly religious person, as a generous person, or even as a sinless devotee. The Parinishthita sadhaka desires acclaim as a great devotee of the Lord, or acclaim as a devotee with clear spiritual understanding, or as one who is completely detached from all materiality. The Nirapeksha sadhaka or renunciate thinks that his honor lies in being considered pure and denounced, as having understood all the esoteric conclusions of the scriptures, or as having mastered the science of devotion. However, one is actually able to root out such deceits only in proportion to his having eradicated any desire for honor and distinction. If one cannot purge his heart of deceit, there is no question of ever attaining unalloyed love of God as it is understood by the Lord's pure devotees. Śrīla Gosvāmī writes in Bhakti Rasamrta Sindhu 1.4.1, when bhava or rati deepens and matures, and as a result of sadhaka's heart softens and melts completely, which is to say, when he becomes spontaneously attracted to any object that has even the slightest relation to his beloved Sri Krishna, only then Shastras declare had he attained love of God, prema. Service to the pure devotees. The Supreme Lord's beloved devotees are by nature unalloyed servitors, and their spiritual status is incomparable. They are the generals in Krishna's army of devotees, and divine rays from the Lord's pleasure-giving potency or Hladini Shakti illuminate their hearts. This potency, moreover, is easily transferred to other hearts, where it vanquishes all contaminations and generates transcendental love of Godhead. The pure Vaishnava devotees embrace the dust of their Lord's feet, their food remnants, and their sacred instructions. For these all have the transcendental potency of impregnating one's heart with the divine Hladini Shakti. Shiva tells his wife Parvati in a verse from the Padma Purana quoted by Śrīla Gosvāmī in his Laghu Bhagavatamrita 2.4. Of all the different kinds of worship, worship of the Supreme Lord Vishnu is the highest. But even greater than this is the worship of his pure devotees. This is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam 3.7.19, where it is said, by serving the feet of the spiritual master, one is enabled to develop transcendental ecstasy in the service of this personality of Godhead, who is unchangeable, the invincible enemy of the Madhunimam, and whose service enables one to vanquish material desires. All aspects of service apply to worship of devotees. Srila Rupa Goswami makes the further comment in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. All the different aspects of devotional service to the Supreme Lord, which have been discussed in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, also relate to serving the Vaishnavas. And this is the opinion of the Pan. He describes a pure devotee thus, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu quotes, after having beheld an indescribably wonderful personality drenched in tears of ecstasy, his body erupting with goosebumps, wailing falteringly, falling down at every step, his heart floating in waves of divine bliss, his whole being trembling like an autumn leaf, I become dumbfounded at his devotion and have lost all interest in family life or material activities. I think we are going to stop here at after verse 7, and we will continue part 2 from verse 8 onwards, because we read half of the book in first reading. So now we're going to sing a song and then followed by a small short kirtan before we conclude the session. So we are going to sing, this song name is called Saptaham Muradit Karambhuja. Karambhuja, its official name is called Govardhanashraya Dashakam. This is from Stavāvali, written by Śrīla Raghunātha Gosvāmī. And we have taken this from the kksongs.org. And again, we thank them for making all of these songs available for us to be able to actually sing together. Saptaham Nurajit Karambuja Paribhrajat Kanishthanguli Projadvalgu Varatako Parimilan Muktadire Popiya Pathakshepaka Shakranakra Mukhatakkrode Vrajam Dragapa Kastango Kula Bandhavam Girivaram Govardhanam Nashraye Indratve Nivrutam Vavam Suranaviyo Yena Dīnātmana Shakrena Nugata Chakara Surabhir Yena Abhishekam Hare Yatkache Janitena Nandita Janam Govinda Kundam Kruti Kastam Gonikarendra Pattadik Kastam Gonikarendra Patta Sikaram Govardhanam Nashraye Svardhunyadi Varenya तीर्थगणतो हृद्यान्यजश्रं हरे हराप्सरः प्रियकतत् श्रीदानकुन्दान्यपि प्रेमक्षेमरुचिप्रदानि परितो भ्राजन्ति यशव्रती कस्तं मन्यमुनीन्द्रवर्णितगुणं गोवर्धनं नाश्रयेत् ज्योत्स्नामोक्षणमाल्यहारसुमनो गौरीबलारिध्वजा गान्धर्वादिसरांसि निर्झरगिरिशृङ्गारसिंहासनम् गोपालोऽपि हरिस्थलं हरिरपि स्फुर्जन्ति यत्सर्वथा कस्तं गोमृगपक्षिवृक्षललितं गोवर्धनं नाश्रयेत् गङ्गाकोच्यधिकं बकारिपदजारिस्तारिकुन्दं वहन् भक्त्या शिरसा नटेन सततं प्रेयांशिवाज्यप्यभूत् राधाकुण्डमणिं तदैव मुरजित् प्रौढप्रसादं दधा प्रेयस्तव्यमनोभवत्कैहतं गोवर्धनं नाश्रयेत् यस्यां माधवनाविकोरसवतीम् आधाय राधान्तरौ मध्ये चञ्चलकेलिपातविलनात्राशैस्तुवत्यास्तता स्वाभीष्टं पणमाददेवहति सा यस्मिन्मनो जाह्नवी कस्तं तन्नवदम्पतिप्रतिभुवं गोवर्धनं नाश्रयेत् रासे श्रीशतवञ्जसुन्दरसखी वृन्दाञ्चिता सौरभा भ्राजत्कृष्णरसालबाहुविलसत्कण्ठी मधौ माधवी राधा नृत्यति यत्र चारुमलते रासस्थली सा परा यस्मिन् सत्सुकृतितम् उन्नतमये गोवर्धनं नाश्रयेत् यत्र स्वीयगणस्य विक्रमभृता वाचा मुहुः फुल्लतो स्मेरक्रूरदृगन्तविभ्रमसरैः शाश्वन्विधो विद्धयो तद्यूनोर्नवदानसृष्टिजकलिर्भङ्ग्याः संजृम्भते कस्तं तत्पृथुकेलिसूचनशिलं गोवर्धनं नाश्रयेत् श्रीदामादिवयस्य सञ्चयवृतः सङ्कर्षणेनोल्लसन् यस्मिन् गोचय चारुचारणपरो रीरीति गायच्चसौ रङ्गे गूढगुहासु च प्रधयति स्मारक्रियां राधया कस्तं सुभगभूषिताञ्चिततनुं गोवर्धनं नाश्रयेत् कालिन्दीं तपनोद्भवं गिरिगणाम् अच्छुन्नमाशेखराम् श्रीवृन्दाविपिनं जनेप्सितधरं मन्दीश्वरं चाश्रयम् हित्वायं प्रतिपूजयन् व्रतकृते मानं मुकुन्दो ददौ कस्तं शृङ्गिकिरीटिनं गिरिनृपं गोवर्धनं नाश्रयेत् तस्मिन् वासदमस्य रम्यदशकं गोवर्धनस्येह यत् प्रादुर्भूतमिदं यदीयकृपया जीर्णान्धवक्त्रादपि तस्योद्यद्गुणवृन्दबन्धुरखणेर्जीवातुरूपस्य तोषायापि अलं भवत्तिह फलं पक्वं मया मृग्यते. So this is a song, Saptaham Vradit Karambuja, Govardhanashya, Dasakam from Stavāvali by Śrīla Raghunātha Gosvāmī. Now we are going to sing a small kirtan before we conclude the session. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Sri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Sri Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai, Śrīla Raghunātha dāsa Gosvāmī ki jai, Shri 6 Gosvāmīs ki jai. Hare Krishna. So thank you again, once again, for joining today's reading. We hope you will be able to join in the second part of this reading, completing from verse 8 to the end of this prayers. Thanks once again. Hare Krishna.